Why I believe that this is going to be the best quarter ever in this cycle is what we'll discuss in this video. And I don't just mean that because these are generally the best quarters. You simply have to say that October, November, December, January, and February are usually among the best months, the best times in the crypto market. I mean, on average, October sees 20% and November on average 46%. These really are the best months. But we've just seen a major liquidation. I think everyone noticed it. What happened here yesterday was crazy. But it's not that big of a deal, or rather, you just have to understand how the dynamics work, because basically it was a huge capitulation. A lot of longs were liquidated. It was a pure market maker game, but it was also completely manipulated again and again. Strangely enough, before all of this happened, someone opened a huge short position 30 minutes earlier. Very strange, must have just been a coincidence. He obviously made a lot of money, but basically, a lot of people just got liquidated here, and in the end, it was simply a market correction. Now we can slowly start moving up again. Maybe not tomorrow, not the day after tomorrow, but things will slowly start to rise again. And I'll show you a lot of charts or examples in a moment to explain why, especially with Bitcoin and the crypto market, we still have a lot ahead of us compared to other assets. That's very important to keep in mind. You just have to understand how this cycle works. The cycle goes up, especially when we hit new all-time highs and see a stronger rise, then comes a major capitulation and a long sideways phase. When an uptrend comes, it comes parabolically. That's exactly how it's been the whole time. That's simply because we have big whales here who bought in a few years ago. Some of them bought at low prices, and when the price hits a new all-time high, they just sell off bit by bit. Then a few thousand bitcoins are simply sold. That leads us to a consolidation, and then we can keep climbing. In the long run, this way we'll be able to reach much higher prices with Bitcoin than you ever thought possible. It's incredible. And what's also incredibly positive is this candle we saw here yesterday. That's a really massive candle. But that also means there's a lot of leverage being used here. And in the end, this is truly a bull run candle, because only in a bull run do you get such big V-shaped moves. A quick drop down and then back up again. That's a typical sign of a bull run. That's why this is really good. A lot of people got liquidated here. And when that happened yesterday, Binance was down, Coinbase, Kraken, all of them, they all had problems. On Binance, you couldn't withdraw or deposit anything. These exchanges had incredible problems. One exchange had no problems, and that's Pionex. And personally, I now use Pionex for my trading bots. You're welcome to use them. Just sign up here. Here are my bots. I've linked them for you. Feel free to click on them. These bots are incredibly awesome. Here you can also see what you can earn annually with them, what kind of returns they offer. So far, I've had really good experiences with them. You're welcome to pick out bots here. As I said, good experiences so far, and the great thing is, even in these bad market phases, these bots make money. Accordingly, I use them. So go ahead and check it out. In the next few days, I'll also make a tutorial on Pionex. And now I'll show you why Bitcoin is still lagging a bit, and why I think yesterday was a huge opportunity, and why I believe the next few months are going to be really big. I'll show you that now on the weekly chart. With the S&P 500, we've basically been rising for 5 months. That's really crazy. Take a look at this chart of the S&P 500. It's only going up here. There are hardly any corrections here, and with Bitcoin, it hasn't been like that in comparison. We've had several corrections here. With Bitcoin, we're rising a bit more healthily, so to speak. But what the S&P 500 has already gained, we still have to catch up with Bitcoin. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. And accordingly, we already know where things are headed. It's exactly the same with the M2 money supply, because you can overlay the M2 money supply perfectly with the S&P 500. I've done it here once. Take a look at how perfectly we're following the M2 money supply with the S&P 500. We're following it incredibly closely, and that's really nice. But with Bitcoin, that hasn't been the case this whole time. We were in a correction here and then in a longer sideways phase. And because that was the case, we still have a lot of catching up to do. Look at this discrepancy. For weeks now, we haven't been following the M2 money supply anymore, and by now a trading gap has simply formed. There's a gap and we still need to close that gap. And that's really bullish because it means we'll reconnect with the M2 money supply, and accordingly we have to rise. And as I said, the S&P 500 has already shown us how it's done. We're simply following suit here. It's similar with gold. Gold is really going crazy these days. It's hitting one all-time high after another, rising really rapidly. But we're also following the gold price with Bitcoin. And here I've specifically pulled up another chart. Most of the time we also see a delay of about 80 days there. And since we've now caught the next really nice upward trend in gold, the one we also saw in the S&P 500 but didn't see in Bitcoin, that means we still have to catch up there. We still need to make up for that now. Accordingly, we need to pick up the pace again now. What we missed out on here with the S&P 500 and gold should now gradually flow into Bitcoin because there's simply a delay here. Money is being shifted from gold and the S&P 500 into Bitcoin. Why is that happening? Because the profits have already been made there. The money is being shifted into risk assets like Bitcoin. That's usually how it goes. Additionally, the silver price is now indicating that we're really slowly entering a risk-on environment, which is also positive because it means the entire crypto market performs better, including our altcoins. Because what we've achieved here in the past few weeks is incredible. Even silver has performed really well, but Bitcoin hasn't performed as well in comparison. And as I said, that's why we now have to catch up in the crypto market, and as we can see, we are catching up. Last week, we had one of the biggest green candles of this entire cycle, and accordingly, we can slowly see that we're catching up. And that's exactly what we want to see. That's incredibly positive, and that's why I'm convinced that this upcoming quarter will be extremely exciting. What also needs to be said is that we currently have a US shutdown, and that's also positive. I told you about it right on the day it was announced. This is extremely positive for the coming months. I showed you charts that the S&P 500 was significantly higher on average every time after a shutdown. For example, on average, it was even 12% higher after 1 year, and that's incredible for the S&P 500. That means every time after a shutdown, we see a rapid increase, unless we enter a recession. If we don't see a recession, it's clear that we'll see a really sharp rise in the coming months, because the shutdown creates clarity and injects additional liquidity and money into the market. Additionally, in 19 days, we will see another interest rate cut of 25 basis points. That too will have a great long-term impact. And overall, the most important thing to understand here is that the most powerful man in the world has complete connections in the crypto market. He really has connections to everyone. Just as you can see, he is pushing this, and so is his whole family. The people around him, they're all pushing it. I mean, BlackRock is simply the most powerful asset manager in the world, and he's pushing it. That's all well and good, but Donald Trump's associates are pushing it completely. Elon Musk, Eric Trump, his own son, and so on, Paul Atkins, who also works at the SEC, and so on. I don't even think I need to list them all. You can see what's happening all around. And the best example of this is simply the stablecoin sector, because Trump has launched his own stablecoin with World Liberty Finance. And so far the stablecoin is doing pretty well, slowly building up nicely. So Donald Trump has launched his own stablecoin. That's definitely a really positive sign. That means he's very optimistic about stablecoins. On the other hand, just today, we received news that Coinbase and MasterCard want to acquire another stablecoin company, and something like that will potentially be integrated into MasterCard so that in the future you'll also be able to trade with stablecoins. We can see the stablecoin market cap is skyrocketing like crazy. Stablecoins are just building up without any correction, without anything. I mean, we simply haven't had a correction here for a long time, nothing is happening at all. We're getting more and more stablecoins entering the stablecoin sector market. Because we've now also seen that the US government is slowly starting to regulate stablecoins, but in a positive way, making it easier and easier to create, use, and utilize stablecoins. And now you have to understand, why is Trump doing this? First, he has his own stablecoin, which is already a positive thing. That means if the US moves more and more towards stablecoins, that's also positive for his coin. But what's much more important is that through stablecoins pegged to the US dollar, the US is strengthening its own currency. And the world reserve currency is the dollar. But in recent years, we've seen the dollar lose more and more significance. But in the crypto market, for example, everything is traded only in dollars. And every dollar that's traded here has to be backed somewhere. And in the end, that completely strengthens the US dollar. And by now, this market has such a huge impact that stablecoins have become a really major component, and stablecoins are currently massively strengthening the dollar, which in turn boosts the US. Because on the other hand, stablecoin companies also have to hold large amounts of US government bonds, which means the US can take on more debt and the US government can be better financed, and so on. So it all builds on each other. The stablecoin sector is being massively pushed. I just told you why. This isn't happening for no reason. Everything has a purpose, and that purpose benefits the US, but as far as I'm concerned, as long as we're making money here. I mean, what else do I need to show you? First, we need to catch up to the gold price, catch up to the M2 money supply, catch up to the S&P 500. We're still lagging behind with Bitcoin here. And usually it's like this. Gold heats up and Bitcoin gets even hotter. Accordingly, from a chart analysis perspective, I'm extremely optimistic about this topic. Just as you have to say, on the other hand, take a look at the social risk score. This indicator refers to YouTube. We have far fewer viewers on YouTube. We're not getting any new retail investors among the YouTubers. We simply have significantly fewer people in this market right now than in any bullish cycle. And the great thing is, we're already standing so high with Bitcoin. Accordingly, everything points to the fact that from now on, we still have plenty of room to move up. Another example here, Google Trends. If I type in Bitcoin and look at the last 5 years worldwide, I see that we're really low right now. So people aren't even interested in the crypto market at the moment. And that's actually even more positive, because we also see on the other side that the big institutional investors are buying in. And I'll say it like it is. They're not going to lose. At some point, they're going to have to sell, they're going to want to sell, and they're going to want to sell at higher prices. They'll take advantage of this potential with the retail investors because they also need exit liquidity. That means if all the big institutional investors were to sell now, the price would probably dump too quickly. Accordingly, at some point, they also want to trigger a phase of euphoria. But so far, that just hasn't been the case. We've had the start of a small euphoria phase twice, more or less, and then it quickly got stopped again. We were dumped down here by big investors, by whales, by smart money. We were deliberately held back so that the cycle could be intentionally extended. I've shown you this over the past few days. BlackRock made the most money this year with the Bitcoin ETF. Of course, he wants to keep pushing this crypto market, and of course, he wants it to last as long as possible because he knows very well that in a bear market, he'll potentially make significantly less money. That's why we can still be optimistic from now on. And if we really do see an overheated Bitcoin in the near future, and we can finally break out of zones like these, then that could also result in a potential altcoin season. And that's exactly what we're all looking forward to. That would definitely be really great. And what would also be really great is if you like and comment on the video now. And with that, I'd say see you next time. Bye.